Hey, what's up, you guys? Welcome back to NBA Got Game TV, and like always, thanks for tuning in. Before we get to today's video, I just got a little reminder in case you missed it. I got a brand new channel called the BTM, the Basketball Time Machine, which is a podcast with me and former NBA players talking about the 80s, the 90s, and the early 2000s. So if you guys want to support me, I would really appreciate it if you could click the link underneath the video and subscribe to my new channel. In order for me to get more former NBA players, I need the channel to grow, so I really hope you guys would support me. But now let's get into the video. So this video is actually a video I wanted to do for quite some time now, simply because apparently 99.9% of NBA fans believe that Tim Duncan is the best power forward to ever play the game. And don't get me wrong, Tim Duncan was awesome. That guy was just a special player, no doubt about that. But it seems like Charles Barkley doesn't even get mixed in the conversation anymore. Like, there's no way Charles Barkley could be the best power forward. And that actually disturbs me. Why? Because I actually watched this guy play, and if you are an 80s and 90s NBA fan, you know how special Charles Barkley was. So I want to use this video just to show you guys that this guy was a special player and at least deserved to be mentioned in that conversation. So we all know that Charles Barkley always was that chubby guy, that overweight guy. So even when he was drafted, I mean, you probably know the story that Charles Barkley gained some weight the nights before the draft, so the Philadelphia 76ers wouldn't draft him, but they drafted him anyway. And he performed right from the start. He wasn't even in the starting lineup, but he fought his way into the starting lineup during the season. And even though the Philadelphia 76ers had many great players on the team, there was no way they could leave Charles Barkley off the starting lineup for longer. So let me give you some numbers. In 1986, at the young age of 23, Charles Barkley averaged 23 points, 14.6 rebounds, 5 assists, 1.8 steals, 1.5 blocks on 60% from the field. These are numbers of a true all-rounder. And you want to see how that looked like? Check this out.
Top rookie from Auburn, Charles Barkley! Now it's solid! But Charles, that's a runaway truck right there. Solid as a rock. Barkley doing it all.
Indeed, Charles Barkley has become a solid rock force with the Philadelphia 76ers. He's come a long way from Leeds, Alabama, where he learned the game on this basketball court. In college, he starred for 3 years at Auburn, and now his flamboyance is catching on in the pros. Moving from a small town in Alabama to a big city like Philadelphia would be an adjustment for almost any 21-year-old, but that's not really the adjustment Charles Barkley is concerned with. He just doesn't like being a rookie.
The referees don't give you any breaks, and you have to carry the guy's bag sometime. I'm just glad, that I'm playing with the Sixers. That makes it easier because we were winning, I'm glad I'm not playing for a team that's in last place if I was a rookie. And I can handle anything as long as we're winning.
Including food. His appetite has always been an issue. He once weighed 315 pounds. They called him Boy Gorge, round mound of rebound.
Not bad.
The Sixers even had a night letting everybody heavier than 260 in free. But now a trimmed-down Barkley is laughing at others.
That was a big guy, we pretty ugly, but Moses, I consider myself ugly, but I consider Moses uglier.
Despite the jokes, Malone has helped the rookie, and the Sixers are 19-2 since Barkley moved into the starting lineup. His coast-to-coast drive is a patented move, with a behind-the-back dribble and always a big finish.
I try to do something that gets myself going. And if I think I got a chance to take it behind my back, I will. But especially at home, if the crowd comes out to see you, you want to give them the money's worth. And, anybody can do just a regular layup, but I try to do something to make them think about later.
At his home in Philadelphia, Barkley is close to being a hermit. But on the court, his defensive presence is just what the doctor ordered.
He's the right guy for us. Realized that the first day of training camp, I was trying to box him out from the foul line. Ended up in about the 8th row over at the practice gym. From that day on, I have stayed out of the man's way.
As long as I'm having fun, I think I'm pretty much satisfied. Like I say, my number one goal in life was to take care of my family, and I've accomplished that. And I think everything else is just icing on the cake. And that's what I'm striving for, some more icing.
In his rookie season, Charles Barkley had many Hall of Famers on his team, like Dr. J and Moses Malone. But 4 years later, none of these All-Stars and Hall of Famers were left, and Charles Barkley was left, let's say it, with a bad team. He was putting up great numbers, but the East was way too strong for Barkley to make some noise in the East. So when he got traded to the Phoenix Suns, everything changed. Now he had guys like Dan Marley, Kevin Johnson, Frank Johnson, Tom Chambers, Mark West, and all of these guys on his team. And suddenly, what happened? Barkley took the Phoenix Suns to the finals. And it just so happened that they lost against Michael Jordan. I spoke to a couple of former NBA players recently, and it seems I'm not the only one who thinks that it's unfair just to rate a player on his championship rings. The 80s and 90s were packed with great players, and there were so many Hall of Famers who didn't win an NBA championship. Let me just give you some names: Reggie Miller, Chris Mullin, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Tim Hardaway, Patrick Ewing, Shawn Kemp, Mutombo, Chris Webber, Iverson, Penny Hardaway, Grant Hill, Dominique Wilkins, and the list goes on and on and on. Every year, only one team can win the championship. But believe me, when Barkley was with the Phoenix Suns, it had a reason why he won the MVP award this year.
The night he is going to win the MVP, okay, we go to my bar. It was confirmed that Charles is going to win the MVP. So I got on the mic, I stand on the bar, get the mic, and I announce that Charles Barkley, before anybody even knows it, has just won the MVP of the league. And the place goes nuts, and we do a little spotlight on Charles, and drinks all around. Just one of those, iconic nights that the kid from Traverse City, Michigan, now he's standing on his own bar, announcing his teammate, who's the MVP of the whole NBA. It's pretty cool when you think about it.
But from day one here, they embraced me. They treated me great. One of the reasons I still live here today is because the fans were fantastic to me.
Up to Miguel Knight. Fast break Suns to Barkley. Right up the left-hand and score. Nice execution off the break by the Suns.
Barkley was a dominant player. Extremely dominant in the post area. He was one of the best and most talented players that's ever played the game of basketball in this history.
Charles had this, magnetism about him, and he was very confident. Who wouldn't want to play with a guy like Charles? He wasn't going to lose. I mean, he would take everybody on his back and say, I'm going to get you to the promised land.
Barkley is Barkley. I don't think he's 6'3". He was just one of those rare players that size didn't matter. It was just determination.
Rebound Barkley. He battles, he shoots, he scores. Sir Charles.
I mean, he would take on Goliath. I mean, he was just had that bravado about him. So Charles, he was unbelievable what he accomplished for his size.
Charles Barkley is probably one of the greatest power forwards of all time, for sure, because of his skill set. He was still able to dominate inside the paint. His rebounding is second to none. I mean, this guy was just a beast on the boards. To be only 6'7" or so and be able to snag 20 rebounds and, on a nightly basis seemed like was incredible.
Charles was a different kind of competitor. He wanted to destroy you. I mean, he was a fun guy, and he's super off the floor, a great guy to be around, but such a competitor on the floor, and there was nothing that he couldn't do on the basketball court.
Here's the lob for Barkley, goes up and jams! Oh, beautiful alley-oop for Sir Charles.
He could get on the roll when the team's down, and he could create a 10-0 run by himself.
And we knew we had a superstar. And not only a superstar, we had a person who could sway the officials one way or the other by his aggressiveness, by his physicality, and that was unheard of besides Karl Malone in the Western Conference.
He was so genuine, he'd give you the shirt off his back. Great teammate, cared about winning more than anybody I've ever played with as far as when the game started. Hated to practice, was the worst practice player in the world.
He was the best basketball player I'd ever played with. I'm not saying he's the best basketball player ever, but the one I played with, he was the best basketball player I'd ever played with.
And I would have to really think long and hard to think of any player that played an entire season that year or any other year with more determination to win than Charles Barkley.
Barkley dish off to Sabanos, back to Barkley, and a nice give and go. Barkley goes in for the jam.
He'd always believed in himself, but I think that for him to win the MVP over Michael Jordan is something that legitimized his career in a way that probably more so than anything else. And he was that good. I mean, he was good enough to win an MVP over Michael Jordan. He was good enough to outplay probably the greatest power forward of all time, Karl Malone, whenever they played against each other that year.
For me,
that year, we had the best player in the league. Charles was the best player. He was MVP. But above and beyond that, he was the best player in the league that year.
You led your team in assists, you led them in rebounds, you led them in points, and you led them to the best record in the NBA. The fans here and around America join me in congratulating you, Charles Barkley, the 1992-93 National Basketball Association Most Valuable Player. Congratulations.
He had a year for the ages. Have a front row seat to it and have my seat belt buckled up and go for the ride along with Charles that year.
So Charles Barkley stayed with the Phoenix Suns for a couple of years and ended his career with the Houston Rockets. So as I mentioned earlier, Tim Duncan is definitely one of the best power forwards to ever play the game, just as Karl Malone, but I actually took the time just to compare some numbers. So if we compare the careers of Charles Barkley and Tim Duncan, what you guys will see is Tim Duncan played definitely way more games than Charles Barkley. Because of his back problems, Charles had to retire at the young age of 36. If we take a look at the minutes, we see that Charles Barkley played a little bit more minutes. The reason is Tim Duncan played more seasons, and year by year, Tim Duncan's minutes declined. So let's take a look at the field goal percentage. Charles Barkley shot 54% from the field and Tim Duncan 50%. Don't get me wrong, 50% is still good, but 54% obviously is better. When it comes to the three-pointers, Tim Duncan didn't shoot many three-pointers. Charles Barkley, on the other hand, shot three-pointers once in a while, and his percentage wasn't great, but it also didn't have to be. But now we're getting to the interesting part, the rebounds. Charles Barkley averaged 11.7 in comparison to Tim Duncan's 10.8, so that one goes to Charles Barkley. When it comes to the assists, Charles averaged almost 4, Tim Duncan 3, so that one also goes to Charles Barkley. The steals, okay, obvious, no question, and the blocks, okay, that one actually goes to Tim Duncan, 2.2 in comparison to 0.8. So in conclusion, don't get me wrong, Tim Duncan definitely is a Hall of Famer and definitely one of the best power forwards to ever play the game, but I just wanted to show some more love to Charles Barkley because I think for an undersized power forward, that guy was special and at least always should be in the conversation. Thanks for watching, guys. See you next time. Hey, and thanks for watching this video. We really hope you enjoy our content, and if you'd like to support our channel, you can do these things. First, subscribe to our channel and click the notifications button so you will always be up to date when we upload a new video. And also check out our Facebook page. You will find the link underneath the video. Likes are very appreciated. Thanks a lot.